The 2025 NBA All-Star starters have been announced for the East and West. As we know, the fans obviously vote for it, and then later the coaches will pick the reserves. I'm going to tell you who my picks are for both conferences and the reserves as well, and compare it to what inside the NBA actual NBA players have. I didn't make my video after I saw what they did. I did it before, so it's going to be interesting. And let me say right off the rip, I'm going to start out with the West because I had the most problems with that. It seemed as though the fans gave some career achievement awards as opposed to just looking at what is going on in this regular season. So let's get right into it. The West starters for this year is Stephen Curry, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, LeBron James. Let's keep in mind it's 3 forwards and 2 guards in the backcourt. That's all they're doing. It's not point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. And my main issue with this is I wouldn't have Steph Curry or Kevin Durant in my starting lineup for the West. When you think of the faces of the NBA and who's been carrying it over a duration of a long time, yeah, Steph Curry, KD, LeBron James. I don't have an issue with LeBron being in the lineup because he's still putting up amazing numbers, and the Lakers are still afloat in the Western Conference, obviously in the playoff picture. When I look at Steph Curry's team and where Kevin Durant is, they're not in that playoff picture, period. So I'm having a hard time seeing how it's fair to put them in the starting lineup. The reserves, I'm going to get into that in a bit. I'll give you my starting lineup, and keep in mind this is still late January. The whole All-Star weekend thing is February 16th, mid-February, so we're going to see how this all plays out. Things can change. But as of right now, my starting lineup would be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Ja Morant, LeBron James, Domantas Sabonis, and Nikola Jokic. Depending on how you look at things, you could throw in Anthony Davis instead of Sabonis. I think it's very subjective between those two. Ja Morant in limited minutes is putting up really good numbers, and the Memphis Grizzlies are at the top of the West. Steph Curry's putting up really good numbers in limited minutes as well. But as I was saying just before, the Golden State Warriors, they're not doing that good as a team. They started off really hot. If they continued the run that they did for the first 15 games of the season, I would have had Steph Curry in the lineup. And with Kevin Durant, the Suns are in 10th place, the Warriors 11th place. The West is very competitive. They're both around the 500 mark. KD's numbers look a lot better. But look, I'm not trying to make it seem like they're just a total lottery team and they're complete trash. I'm just saying that I'm prioritizing winning at a high level for my criteria list more than even these numbers that they may be putting up still, which leads into my list that I have for the Western Conference reserves. This is where it gets very subjective. I know there's going to be somebody who thinks I got it wrong. Nah, man, you got to get this guy, that guy. Let me know in the comment section, though. I ain't going to be mad. It's just, my opinion and your opinion. But for me, I have Anthony Davis, Jamal Murray, De'Aaron Fox, Anthony Edwards, Kevin Durant, Alperen Sengun, and Kyrie Irving. Now, the names that I didn't mention that you could throw in there and make this even more debatable, Luka Doncic, obviously. I'm just trying to figure out, has he played enough games to make the All-Star list? If he has, I would swipe him out for Kyrie Irving. You have James Harden, of course. I have no idea how the Clippers are even at the top of the West, losing Paul George. I thought that team was really going to go down. I got to give them credit. Norman Powell as well, who Charles Barkley said should be an All-Star this year. I don't have him on my list. I can see why Barkley may feel that way. My only issue that I have with Harden, and this may be a reason why I didn't give him that reserve list for me, he's shooting below 40%. I think anytime if you're considered a star player and you're efficiently putting up numbers, you got to be above 40 bare minimum. You can't be below that. The last 2 names that I had that I was grappling back and forth with, Steph Curry and Jalen Williams. Steph Curry for obvious reasons. He's a fan favorite, popular. I just don't have him this year. It's a down year for the Warriors, and he's playing in limited minutes. Jalen Williams is a player I definitely had to take into consideration. He's holding it down as the second best player on a very successful OKC team. As we know, Shai Gilgeous is leading that. Holmgren is not in the lineup. On top of that, Jalen Williams is a legitimate two-way monster. If there's anybody outside of Luka that I would take to move up and make this team, it would probably be him. All right, so if you say, nah, Jalen Williams got to be in the All-Star game, I totally understand. Now, let's compare my reserves list to the Inside the NBA crew that I have on the screen. This is my first time even looking at theirs. I did mine as I was recording, and then I decided to pull it up right now. All right, and right away you can see Victor Wembanyama is the key player that they have on theirs. I didn't have him on mine, but let's get this clear. When I watch Victor Wembanyama, forget the numbers. Me just watching him, he looks like a flat-out superstar and somebody I would want to build my team around. It's just the Spurs are in 12th place in the West. If you're saying that doesn't matter, the Spurs are not that far record-wise away from other players in the West that are going to make the All-Star game, then fine. I can see why you swap them in. I'm not mad at that at all. Let me actually go in order, though, with the names that each of them picked. First, I'll start with Shaq. So Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Williams, okay, I was just talking about that. Jaren Jackson, understand. Steph Curry, okay. Anthony Edwards, Kyrie Irving, I had Kyrie Irving on mine. James Harden, that was another name that I just mentioned. Kenny, Victor Wembanyama, Jalen Williams. Okay, I like it. A lot of people are mentioning Jalen Williams. As I said, two-way monster. James Harden, okay. John Morant. Now, I had him in my starting lineup. Anthony Davis, okay. Alperen Sengun, yeah. Sengun deserves it. The Houston Rockets, who had them at the top of the West? Like, come on, man. Anthony Edwards, I like that. Charles Barkley, Victor Wembanyama. Domantas Sabonis. Yeah, Sabonis got to be in the game, man. Steph Curry again. Jalen Green, wow. I don't know about that. It's interesting. Anthony Davis, got him too. Kyrie Irving, I like that. And Norman Powell. So Charles Barkley is standing by his conviction that Norman Powell deserves to be an All-Star. I like it, man. And look, the only one that I had really off that made mine look like night and day compared to theirs was not having Victor Wembanyama. Other than that, I think my list looks pretty solid and it's debatable, and you can tell me what you think. Moving over to the Eastern Conference side of things, the reason why I spent a lot more time on the West, the East to me was very straightforward, especially the starting lineup. The reserves was a bit more tricky. I'll start with the starters. Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Karl Anthony Towns, full stop. For the forwards in the East, there is no other players you can mention other than Paolo Banchero. If he was healthy, that would have been a huge debate, and I would have been very interested to see how that works out. He was putting up some really major numbers before his injury. And the backcourt, Jalen Brunson, another very obvious pick. I don't know who else you would put over him unless you're just going strictly off statistics. Cade Cunningham or Trae Young. If not, he got to be there. And then the fans voted Donovan Mitchell. My list is exactly this starting lineup that y'all picked. The only difference is I had Damian Lillard instead of Donovan Mitchell, and that's just very subjective. I think you could go with either or. I'm not mad if you like Donovan over Damian Lillard, vice versa. All right, so this starting lineup that the fans picked, pretty much identical with what I have. Let's get into the reserves, which is a little bit more tricky, especially with the forwards. That Eastern Conference, man, just not a lot of stars at that forward spot, power forward, center, or small forward, once you get past the main ones that are mentioned in this starting five. Nonetheless, I think the most obvious one that is glaring is Evan Mobley. And I've said before, to me, Evan Mobley is the best player on the Cavaliers. It's actually not Donovan Mitchell. I just like Evan Mobley that much in terms of his all-around game. Next, I'm going to go with Franz Wagner. This one, maybe put an asterisk beside it because he's been injured a lot. And I don't know if they're going to still count him, or will he play enough games leading up to the All-Star weekend to qualify to make it by the time the coaches pick the reserves. I'm just going to put him there because, again, I was struggling to find at least 3 forwards that I could have off the bench for the East. I didn't want to make the whole reserve list a bunch of guards. I'm just not into that as the basketball fan that I am. And then Bam Adebayo, I had to put him in there. Miami Heat, they're 9th. Bam is still roughly averaging a double-double, 15 points, 10 boards, giving you a few assists. A great defender too, which moves me along into the final 4 spots that I reserved purposely for guards. This one was more tricky. The East had a lot of different players at the positions of point guard, shooting guard you could throw in there. I went with Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, and Cade Cunningham. All right, Darius Garland is a name you could have in there. Tyrese Halliburton, Tyler Hero. I'm going to go with these names, especially Trae Young and Cade Cunningham. They're just putting up too good of a season with the points, the assists, and having their team in the playoff hunt as well. Jaylen Brown, two-way player. Donovan Mitchell got his team at the top of the East. He's voted in for the starting lineup. For me, I got him off the bench. I'm going to pull up who Shaq, Charles Barkley, and Kenny had for their reserves in the East. Again, as I was making this video, I didn't look to see what they have. And right away, as I look at this, Cade Cunningham is a common name across the board. That was an obvious one I had. Darius Garland. So he's playing really great just off the eye test if I'm not even going off of the statistics. Just pure point guard play mixed in with his ability to shoot the three-pointer, and not just a standstill shooter, but one that can come off the dribble, like off of a screen. All right, so, big reason why Cleveland is doing what they're doing. I see Trae Young is highlighted, a name that they all have across the board. Trae Young is someone who I got. Trae Young and Cade Cunningham were just the 2 obvious ones to me. Now, if I continue from Shaq and then go left to right, Shaq got Damian Lillard. He was in my starting lineup that I had for the East starters. Evan Mobley, great to see his name. Karl Anthony Towns, wow, I had Cat starting, so that's pretty interesting. He's obviously starting now in the fan voting. If I go to Kenny, Cade Cunningham, Darius Garland, Trae Young, Damian Lillard, and then LaMelo Ball. Look, the Charlotte Hornets are 11-29 as I'm making this. I believe LaMelo was injured a little bit this year. He's putting up really great all-star numbers. Again, I just got to be consistent. There's a reason why LaMelo's not on my list, all right? Donovan Mitchell, yes, great. Jalen Brunson, and then Charles Barkley. We already went over the 3 names highlighted. Giannis Antetokounmpo, wow. Charles Barkley didn't have Giannis in his starters. LaMelo Ball, again, I wouldn't put in my mind. Bam Adebayo, all right, that's who I have. None of them had Bam. And Pascal Siakam. Y'all let me know in the comment section what you think of my list, what you think of Shaq, Kenny, and what Charles said. And let me know who you would have for the East reserves and East starters, okay? And as always, salute for listening. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.